calendar conflicts, but thank you to our media partners for always being here, for our partners in the police department who are always here as well. Our fire department typically is here too. So thank you so much for just being willing to do something that I know that we weren't doing before. I want to start on a personal note. Yesterday, my oldest daughter turned 18, so she's an adult, and I wanted to publicly give my baby girl a shout out. Proud of her. She got accepted into UMKC. She is going to be a Roo, which makes me a Mama Roo. And she is going to hopefully become a neurosurgeon someday. So Christina, congratulations, happy birthday. Your mother could not be prouder of the woman that you have become. Another thing that I want to encourage everybody to talk about and to be very aware of is two big things. As you know, we kicked off, I think it was in the last meeting, our road construction projects. And if you are driving around town, make sure that you look at the signs. It's important because people get really frustrated when they have to be detoured from their regular routine. But many of you have been telling us for a while that you want to see your streets become better. And this is part of the process. So even though it's a little bit frustrating to have to take a detour, make sure that you do so understanding that when you drive by that road that you're used to driving on a regular basis, it's going to be in a much better situation. So have awareness, not just of those projects, but most importantly of the people that are working on those projects to ensure that nobody gets hurt in our community. And speaking about not getting hurt, cycling season is back up. You will see cyclists and runners out on the street. And for those areas that there's no sidewalks for runners, you will see runners on the road, on the side, trying to make sure that they're being safe. Just be mindful of your runners. And then the other thing that I want to share, as an avid cyclist, the road is meant to be shared between cyclists and cars. When you see a cyclist on the road, don't get upset. Because they're supposed to be on the road. They're going to travel in the same lane that you will. They are going to use the same signals that you do, only with their hands. And make sure that you're kind to them, because these are just individuals that are choosing either a more eco-friendly means of transportation, or they are just making sure that they are getting their workout in. I can tell you that had it not been for my bicycle and for running, the pandemic would have taken a much more deeper toll on my psyche, because the workouts were what kept me going. So be kind to your fellow cyclists, and to all of you cyclists that are excited like I was yesterday to have finally great weather to be out there and not feel like you had to wear a parka to be warm. You know, congratulations, our season has started. We're still in CIP discussions. As you saw, we are moving our CIP information back. The governing body is still working on this. And the last thing that I want to touch on this afternoon is the fact that the CDC yesterday lifted the restrictions on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I know that a lot of people have been excited about having just one shot instead of having to have two vaccines, and they're concerned about what side effects the vaccines provide. The vaccine side effects vary from individual to individual. I've known everybody that have had anything from a sore arm to have nothing, to individuals like me who had a reaction. I cannot over encourage you enough to consider having the vaccine. For somebody that had long-term COVID, after the second vaccine, I can tell you that it was like magic. I don't know what it did to my immune system, but everything that I had that was latent, that would not go away, has gone away. And it seems like there is a lot of individuals that are starting to report the same things. We're not going to force you to get the vaccine, but what we're doing is we're encouraging you so that we can get to the level of immunity in our community, that we can continue just this flow of being out there without having to worry about making our brothers and sisters sick. The other thing that's important is to remember, this, more than anything, is so that we can keep our economy moving, aside from our health. We want to make sure that we don't have our businesses struggling, that we don't have outbreaks in one business that will have to shut down. We really want our economy to keep prospering, and we need you to be a part of that with us. In addition to that, I know that the masks are recommended, but I cannot stress enough how easy it is to just wear your mask when you're in public. And if just as a precaution, Just because you don't have, I have my vaccines, I have both of them, but I still wear my mask when I'm out in public, unless of course I'm on a cycle that I'm not going to interact with anybody or running. So that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for attending. City Manager is all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple things. I will also comment that we are in the middle of the CIP. We're still reviewing and answering questions for the governing body as it relates to that. Our plan right now is to bring that on the May 11th agenda in order to be able to see about getting approval. There is no specific time frame, but we do eventually have to move on to the operating budget. So at some point we need to approve the CIP, but we want to make sure that the governing body is able to do so with an agreement. As I mentioned, James Jackson, our Public Works Director, has been here for about 3 weeks now and is doing great. It's great to have someone with his past experience looking at our programs and processes and already making some changes to improve our operations. So it's been going very well. And as a matter of fact, I know he was looking at a project today at 9 o'clock with a council member and chief of staff. And so it's, really getting hands-on and getting out there and looking at these projects. So good to have him aboard. One project I wanted to mention that people may begin to see, it's a project that's a little delayed, but excited. The timing is really good. And that is our Wayfinding signs project. It has been nice to see a new, fresh color going up with all of our signs that direct us to all the spots within our community. And as we are coming out of the pandemic and travel begins to happen more frequently this summer, it's going to be nice to have those signs out there telling people where to go and giving a new, fresh look. A lot of public input went into deciding the color scheme and what places need to have those signs. And they're going up now, and hopefully they're going to be done here by the end of the month. So timing is really good on that project. Excited to see it happen. Regarding masks specifically for City Hall and other city buildings, my intent right now is that it will be extended another additional 2 weeks beyond the 30th through the second week of May, so at least through May 14th. That's primarily because city employees went through a major vaccination clinic, those that are interested, and that allows us the time frame. They get their second shots this week, and that will allow us some time for them to be able to be considered fully vaccinated, and then we can be a little more open. We'll obviously continue to request that people use masks when they're in city buildings as we go forward, but the requirement, I think, will be removed once we get past the 14th of May. There may be situations, certain meetings, where we'll want to continue to wear masks based on how many are in the room, and so we'll make sure that whoever's conducting that meeting does so accordingly. That's all I have specifically, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Brent. I just wanted to remind everybody that May is Bike Month coming up, so please be very aware of not only the bikers on the road, but also the bike lanes and the sharrows that we have. And the city will be doing lots of fun stuff regarding biking on our social media pages the next month. Do we have any questions? All right, it looks like Blaze has a question.
Yeah, this one is for De La Isla. I know the Central Topeka Grocery Oasis group asked JADO for help potentially funding or accessing funding to build a grocery store in the center of the city or in the core of the city. As chair of JADO, do you know if that's going to come up at the May 11th meeting? Is that on your radar at all?
It is on my radar. They have reached out, and I have been working with this group. I don't know if it's going to be on this specific agenda because of the way that it works, but it is something that we are in conversations of, and I'm excited about the progress that they're making.
We have a question from Joe at WIBW.
All right, good morning. Just want to have an update on the downtown development. AIM Strategies is moving into the old Bremen's building, and don't know where we stand on the post office. It was being discussed this morning. Just want a little update on downtown and the development that's going on.
Well, I don't have any specifics related to those two buildings and what their intentions are related to those purchases. And obviously, we still continue to wait to see who will end up owning the future or in the post office in the future. Don't have any specifics related to that. Sometimes as private land development deals, a lot of times the information, purchases and so forth aren't shared with us until after those decisions are made and those transactions occur. And then we end up meeting with those new owners about what their intent and plans are, trying to work with them in order to bring their dream to reality.
We have a question from Cassie.
Hi there. Okay, just checking to see what is the timeline with appointing a new police chief?
Well, I've been waiting, primarily we've been waiting on the process to play out related to the Police and Community Committee of the City Council. That process really needs to be completed. It would be best if it was completed in order to ensure that we understand what policies are going to be put in place if we are going to make changes in policies, and so that the next chief is understanding what the expectations are going to be on them in order for them to be able to ensure that the job that they're being offered is and the terms basically that they're going to work under are known to them. And I think that's critical. We want to find the right fit based on the decisions that are made by the governing body on how we're going to manage our police department. And so I think that's critical in the process. I don't know exactly when that committee is going to be done, but I'm hopeful that here in the next 3 to 4 months, we'll have a better handle on going through that process and be able to move forward with that hiring. Chief Wheelis has been doing a great job as he moves forward as the interim chief. And obviously, I think he'll make a strong candidate. But we'll move forward with advertising and so forth through the process. And I'll very much do it like we did before, having the community involved in that interview process to make sure that we get that public input that's critical when you're dealing with such an important hire.
We have a question from Blaze.
Yeah, so last night, Topeka Jump was asking you all a little bit about the housing fund or the affordable housing trust funds. This is probably a question for the city manager. About how much money does the city want to see in there at one given time? I know they proposed $5 million, but without knowing how some of that CARES funds or American Relief Rescue funds can be used, you can't commit to that. But is there a dollar amount the city wants to have in that fund at all times?
Brent, do you want to take that? Because I think that's a Blaze, when you talk about the city and you talk about allocation of funds, you have to understand that the city council and the mayor are the people that determine where those funds are going to be going to. And later on, then the city manager is the one that exercises that authority. So it's a little unfair to ask him. What I can tell you is that if it were up to me, we would have at least $2 to $3 million in there. The right thing to do is for us to have a continuous stream of funding. But right now, as you know, this is not the time for us to start looking at, unless we have a surplus, which is where we're at right now, which is why there is a proposal to the council to make the determination if the council would like to facilitate adding $500,000 to that pot. But again, the council has to make that decision. But again, if it were up to me personally, I would love to see $2 to $3 million in a steady source of income, because that would allow for us to do significant rehab projects in our community and be able to start creating the housing stock that we need, not only to help our economy, but also to ensure that every single individual in Topeka has access to decent, affordable housing.
Yeah, Blaze, I don't have much more to add. It is critical that we get a certain amount of money, and in that category the mayor mentioned is really the desired end result before we really begin to accept RFPs. But a lot of that is based on the goals and priorities the governing body has. We need to have a certain amount of money in there, and a significant amount of money, in order to really be able to do what they desire to do.
We have a question from Joe.
Alrighty, so sticking with kind of downtown development and kind of building up the city. Capital Journal had a story about 3% population growth over the past 10 years. Was just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Obviously 3%, not a huge jump, but it is still a jump. And then also, what is the city's population? Do we know those numbers or where those would be accessible to find?
I don't think the census has released the figures down to the city level yet. That should be coming in the next couple of months, but I don't have those numbers yet. What else were you asking, Joe?
Sorry, yeah, just about overall downtown development with that population increase. Again, it's only 3%, so it's not crazy big, but it is still an increase.
Well, you know, there are cities that will be faced with the fact that they may have declining population. And so in some cases, in this current environment we're in, not having a decrease will be a step in the right direction. And I think if it's something to build on, based on the changes that we're making and doing in the downtown area and across the community, working on housing as we are, that'll lend itself to, hopefully within the next 10 years, we'll see a growth. That's a goal of the governing body, and clearly right up front, they want to grow this community and continue to keep our place in the top 5 of the cities in the state of Kansas.
We have a question from Cassie.
Yeah, so we were hoping to learn more about the city's most recent homicide, the one at the 2800 block of Southwest James. I was wondering if you could tell us anything about that at this time.
Well, with it being an ongoing investigation, much of that is being kept by the investigators, and they'll release information when they feel that they can provide it to the public. And so I think when they're able to do so, they will. But I don't have additional information that's not been shared with me.
City Manager, Mr. Munoz, unmuted. I'm thinking he was going to say the same thing, but Mr. Munoz.
Oh, we can't hear you. You're unmuted, but maybe you're not connected to the internet. Try again.
No. All right. Well, City Manager, your word is golden.
As we'll go with, and obviously you can contact Gretchen and the department for additional information that they'll be able to provide you, and keep in touch with them as they provide that information. As soon as they can release it, they will, I'm sure.
We have a question from Joe.
Alrighty, this is my last question here. Just wanted an update on the purple lights around town. Obviously, that was a big story when it first came out. How is that being handled? Or are we fixing them? Where's the situation like with that?
Well, that is an issue related to Evergy and the process that they had a vendor that ended up supplying those. And I know that my staff is currently working with Evergy staff on a process that they'll follow in order to replace those lights. That's my understanding. So eventually those lights will be replaced.
Okay, I don't see any additional questions, so thank you everyone for coming to the monthly Mayor and City Managers News Conference. We won't have one next month, but it'll be at the very beginning of June, just with some scheduling conflicts. So we should have 2 in June at the beginning and the end of the month. All right, have a great day.
Thank you.